Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. La haula wala quwwata illa billah. Saudara pengurusi, Profesor Jadi, Profesor Faris, fellow trainers and brothers and sisters. I first of all would like to thank Allah Ta'ala for giving me this chance to be here with you. When I was asked by Dr. Nolida to be here for this particular session, little did I imagine a configuration of this sort. I've not been with this kind of a crowd for a long time, and I'm a little bit nervous though. To see this many of people here assembled. More importantly, for the mission that we are supposed to achieve in this case. The reason why I thought I should be here was basically to show my personal support for this whole mission that was started by Professor Zadi, and as you can see from the photos, this Insan Sejahtera kind of perspective of where we want to take the university forward after we've gone through a 2-year kind of what I would say, transformation as it were. Okay? If I can recall, in 2019, if you recall, just about 2 years ago, we were planning of how to take the university forward from 2019, 2020. We are in the midst of 2020. I will report to you a little bit of what we have achieved. And therefore now we are planning what to do from the year 21 to 22. Right? And this becomes a very important mission of consultation to get what you feel. I've been going to 3 kuliah for a moment in time, engineering, architecture and environmental design, and just yesterday I think we were in ICT. So we are going from kuliah to kuliah, but it so happened that CFS will be receiving the students I think a couple of days time. Yeah? Okay. And therefore I think we also want to put this right up front, so that when you interact with the student, the message, the language and the aspirations are the same. And therefore the interest today was basically to get everybody on board, and Alhamdulillah, I see 300 people here, academic administrators and everybody else, pitching a kind of effort to bring the university together, at least in the campus of Gambang, so that the message that they were given to the students beginning August will be the new kind of message on the kind of ta'aruf that we're going to have. It was chaired by Professor Faris. And how do then we want to actually bring this to the 3,000 students that you are having, right? And I don't think it is an easy task, but nevertheless we need to try. And I think foundation is very important for the very word of foundation. If you don't have a good foundation, then when they go to other kuliah, then I think we have a lot more work to do. And therefore we are investing a lot of time to make you understand what is it that you want to achieve, and how do you want to achieve it, what sort of messages you want to use, and therefore your interaction today, this is very important. Yeah? So I'm given about an hour or so to just give you the overview of what the discussion has been at the university level, so that when we do our academic review, hopefully beginning September, we will have some of this message through, particularly at the foundation level. We do not expect very much at this moment in time, because we need to go this stage by stage. I don't think we can overwhelm the student with this idea, the ambitious big idea we want to do, but we need to start talking about it and putting the pieces and the blocks one by one, so that by the time they move from year 1 to year 2 until they leave, then they will get the whole perspective of what IIUM is all about. Now you may be asking, what is so different between before and now? I think that you are still with. Are you okay with this now? Okay. Now, if you remember the record that I did with you, this was something making it real as far as the global stage is concerned. I would like to believe, and I think I'm also convinced, that we are now a global university for a simple reason. For the last 2 months or so, we have been recognized by very credible organizations around the world. One of it, as you can see here, is the United Nations University. I don't know people from the back if you can see this, otherwise you please move forward. Yeah. It is the United Nations University based in Tokyo. This United University were tasked in the year 2005 to reconstruct a new university in line with what they call then the Millennium Development Goal, to make sure that the world that we are going to face in the future will be a world that is accommodative to everybody that is on the surface of the earth. It's a very ambitious program, but they call it under sustainable development. The whole concept of sustainable development is based on three things. We need to get the planet right, so that the people that inhabit the planet will be, in a very comfortable, equitable state. We need to then work on what they call equitable prosperity. In other words, everybody, as far as this mission is concerned, will be at a level of almost equitable standard of living. There is no separation between the very rich and the very poor, the have and the have-nots. And all of this, when I look at it, maybe 15 years ago when you were involved in this, is very close to what Islam wants to achieve. Okay? Equitability, fairness, justice, but maybe crafted in a different language. But certainly the aspiration, the essence of Islam is there. And the question then, how do we then make this work? Okay? And therefore this year 2005, when we assess the kind of university that we have at that particular time, coming out from the Industrial Revolution that talks about mass production, the way we do it now, yeah, we don't think this university will be able to serve that idea of equitability, equality, and also quality and justice at the same time. And therefore the thinking of the rector of that university, Professor Van Hinkel, said that we need to reconstruct another concept of a university. And it is not called a university so that we don't get into the excess baggage of what a university is all about. And they give it a different name called the Regional Centers of Expertise. And this is something that I will explain to you. Okay? And they will look at various applicants for who wants to be the Regional Centers of Expertise, whether they have got the construct of what the RCE is for. And until now, when we started with 7 RCE, USM being one, then now we have got less than 200 of this university, which the latest I think is IIUM. And we are the first Islamic university to be part and parcel of this RCE. And therefore I felt that our role as far as RCE is concerned is very, very crucial, because we are the only one that has got perhaps a different point of view, a different interpretation, and a different way of looking at what an RCE is about, given the Islamic perspective that we've got. And therefore, I felt it is important. And we recognize that IIUM has a role to do this so that we've got a more diverse perspective of what the RCE is all about. We'll talk about that a little bit more. And more recently, I think you also agree that we have got this other award called the Green Gown Award International that pronounced us as a Sustainable Institution of the Year. Meaning to say, out of the so many universities that apply to be the Sustainable University of the Year, we are the champion, and therefore we, quote unquote, is the best in the world today. Right? It takes a lot of guts to say that, because at the end of the day, we need to deliver, we need to show that we are indeed the best in the world as far as this is concerned. And it's not a one-man job, it's not a group of people, it's everybody's job, including the students. I think the students is the prime mover of this, because they are the beneficiary of whatever that you want to do. People like me probably will kick the bucket tomorrow and that's the end of the story, but most of you will be here and fighting and struggling to ensure that the future generation will be benefiting from what we do today. Yeah? The three things that Noleda was mentioning about is something that we want to integrate in the perspective of what is sustainable institution means to us. So based on these two alone, I think it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we deliver, to make sure that we are there, to make sure that we walk the talk, and most of all to make sure that when people visit us, I think I now have a number of people who wants to visit us and see what we have done. Yeah? Already I think Dr. Zainal has got an invitation in the Global Conference on Climate Change in 2020, and I remember the organizer said, can you share your inspiring model with the world? Very well. Yeah? And I hope you really can inspire the world when the stage is set for us, October 2020, which is not too far away. So those are the demands. For those of you who are still thinking that you're in Gambang and therefore, you know, the world of Gambang is sufficient for you, I think you need to wake up. Yeah? For those of you who think that Kuantan is your world, again you need to wake up. For those of us who think that Gombak is the only world that you know, I think you need to wake up. The world is up front for us, and that's a stage that I think we need to perform, and that's a stage that we need to actually demonstrate not only IIUM, but to me, more importantly, is the Islamic inspiration of IIUM. That will make a difference, because there's no other university within the RCE that has got the word I as per Islam in their name. Alright? And therefore we want to go through with you so that you really share with us. If you don't, then maybe we can talk about it, how we're going to take this forward as far as this training is concerned. I hope I can get this right. Alright. Now, going back 2 years ago, when we talked to you, we want to create a stage for us. I mean, I came in very late at that particular time, August 2018, you already got all your things done. But one I think that was missing is basically a stage for us to act. I discovered very quickly in this university that many things have been done, but we have not shown to the world that what we have done. In other words, we are very humble about it. I think this is pretty good. But sometimes humbleness alone does not work for you. When there's something that is real, I think we need to tell them that we are real and this is what we are doing. And therefore, in my mind, at that particular stage, was to create a stage for us to perform. A stage for us to tell the world that who we are and what are we capable of doing and what our aspirations are. It's a very noble idea. It's not something that about showing off, but to tell that we are also contributing to the world. We're just not here to receive, but we're also here to give at the same time. And there's a lot of things that we can get. Right? So the world is what we want to create. A stage is what we want to create for ourselves. And that stage is a global stage. Being an international university, I think that global stage is apt for us. Yeah? We cannot be talking about an international university and just stay in Gambang and think this is our world. I think something is terribly wrong there. Right? So we need to work this out. And at what sort of stage we want to work on, we want to create a stage where humanity and human being become the key player. Right? And that includes Muslims, non-Muslims, and that includes everybody else that shares the same world with us. Okay? But as you can see from this, the world is then upside down. And indeed the world has been upside down for the last 20 years. Only that some of us are probably not too privy to that. Right? And therefore this whole concept, of sustainable development was created for the purpose to put things right, at least from the United Nations point of view. And the three dimensions that I mentioned to you is about putting the planet back in own axis. In other words, what it is planet for? Is it for people to actually gain as much money as possible, destroy the environment, making life difficult for others, except for a few? Yeah? Where you then put humanity in that equation, and how then do you begin to redistribute some of the things or some of the gains that everybody is receiving? And this is what, finally, what sustainable development is all about in its own definition. To balance the planet, the people, and the prosperity that is created. Right? When you balance that, then you will get a different kind of a world, and this has been the message that we have been broadcasting throughout. Yeah? But before long, I think we've got another factor to consider, which is the COVID-19. This wasn't in the picture at all, neither it is in the plan of the United Nations, neither it is factored in all the things that we do. It comes as a kind of a disruption that nobody can account for, right? And therefore it becomes even more incumbent for us then to look at what sustainable institutions are all about, which is basically now IIUM, right? So the institution will need to create what we call an equitable world, all right? I think that is fundamental. We need to create a world that is viable and a world that is bearable. So these are the three important words that I think we want to look at. In everything that we do, we want to answer a question, is this equitable? So therefore, when we talk about online learning, for example, we have that long discussion with Nurida and friends. Yeah? Is online learning equitable? If it's not equitable, what else can we do? In other words, we do not want to introduce something at the end of the day will increase the disparity between the haves and the have-nots, right? And indeed, it is not equitable. Suddenly we read our friends in UMS needs to climb a tree to get an internet connection. And that is not what we think equitability is all about. Yeah? We want to make sure that people in the rural areas will have the same privilege with people in the urban areas. And that's what education is for. Education, to my mind, is about leveling off. That people in the state of poverty can break out of poverty to become just like any other person. If education does not do that, then I think it is not education. You can call it by any other name, but as far as I'm concerned, it is not education. How do education play the role of leveling of community, leveling of society, and leveling of individual? And that's a knowledge that we're going to give you so that at the end of the day, our students can break out to be a better person in the context of the 3P that we talk about on sustainable development. Yeah? But the difference for us is, of course, at the end of the day, we will take this on from the perspective of Islam. Right? Where the inspiration comes from, must come from our own religion, our own belief, and our own conviction as far as Islam is concerned. That perhaps is the first differentiator between us and many other universities around the world that I know of that has been an RCE for maybe more than 10 years or so. How do you make that differentiation? How do you convince the people that we have got a better value proposition for them so that they can also begin to understand what Islam is all about, not in a kind of lopsided way. When we talk about Islam now, it's all about the negativities. Yeah? The terrorism, the extremism, whatever it is, whether it's true or not, but that's a perception that we need to put right at the same time as we go into building this block as far as the RCE is concerned. Yeah? So that would be the main task for us. Whatever it is, the outcome, we want to put Islam in a better light, a better pedestal, and also a better understanding of who we are as Muslims around the world. Right? So that's a stage we're going to create. And I think to a certain extent, I've mentioned to you, we have created a stage when we do certain things. For example, having our own roadmaps. Yeah, for the last 2 years, we have been diligently following these roadmaps, hoping that we arrive at a stage, and the stage, I think, is here now for us to look at, right? We're attempting something that is almost not done by many universities, which we will call the whole institution transformation. Research has shown if you want to make a genuine transformation, it has to be holistic. It cannot be piecemeal. It cannot have one kuliah doing it and the rest of the kuliah couldn't report. Alright? It cannot be one group doing it, the rest just pretend that nothing is happening. Everybody must be on the same boat, must be on the same mission, must have the same drive, and moving to the same target. If that happens, then transformation will happen. Otherwise, it will not happen. And that is why talking to you today is of prime importance, that all of us will have the same mission and the same target as we move along. Yes? So alhamdulillah, as I mentioned, in the first, we targeted to be the RCE in June, which is last month. Yeah? But alhamdulillah, we were given this on April the 1st. When I got the first note, April the 1st, they said you are now part of the RC acknowledged by UNU, United Nations University in Tokyo. I thought it was an April Fool joke. Yeah. So, but when I got the letter, when it was all signed, then I know it is genuine. Right? So April 1st for us is a meaningful day, not just a joker's day. So this is the map of the RC at the moment in time. We are somewhere here, but you can see the distribution is not many. Less than 200. That started off with 7 centers in 2005. Now we have 166 in 2018. I think 2019 is about 178, if I'm not mistaken. It's less than 200. And one of these is IIUM. It's 3 or 4 dots. Yeah. But again, you can see the distribution. If you look at the Middle East area, there's no dots at all. All right. Some in Africa. All right. A lot in East Asia, Japan, Korea, China. A lot in Europe. Some in North America, but in the Middle Eastern area, there's probably none. That again makes a burden on us so that we then can also introduce some of this model to the Middle Eastern brothers and sisters. Yeah, in fact, we've been contacted yesterday when we were talking, when we were having our Board of Governors meeting. For the first time, if I remember, Prof. the OIC representative was there to talk to the board members. We have been there for the last 2 years. They couldn't be bothered to even talk to us. Right? But yesterday, I think the Assistant Secretary General talked to us and congratulated us on what we have done, and also said, can you now work with us so that we can now also share some of the experience you have with other universities around the world, particularly in Uganda, in Bangladesh, I think in Niger. These are the 3 Islamic universities that is sponsored by OIC, but not doing so well as compared to IIM. So that's another responsibility, another amanah that we need to carry on. And if we do this well, inshallah, we can spread this message over. What is so different about this model? This model is basically a very different model. In other words, we are not just here about making graduates be employed. Right? This whole talk about employment and employability, which is good, but more than that, we want to make them a better person. In other words, we want to make them a better person first, and then they can get employed. It's not the other way around. Yes? Get employed, and then they become the worst of the crooks in the employment world. Right? And how do you do this? The formula is very simple. As far as United Nations is concerned, they follow this model of you need to work vertically with all institutions of learning, including schools. In other words, our work now needs to cascade it down to schools around us so that they can also share the understanding of what the new education system is all about globally. Yeah? We need to work horizontally among other universities around the world, interact with them. Yeah? And therefore, this is another kind of a mission that we need to follow. But more importantly for them is to also work diagonally. Diagonally means what? We need to work with the community around us. The university cannot be without the community attending. In other words, as the university progresses, the question we need to ask, is the community progressing at the same time? Gambang. Yeah, as the university progresses with new buildings and everything else, is the place that you had breakfast 3 years ago still like that? Or has it progressed at the same time? Okay. Is the community around here, the level of poverty, has it improved? Or is it getting worse? I think that's a different mission altogether from what conventional university is all about. Right now when you work with the community, we work with the community because we have got credits for it. Under this model, you work for the community because you have to work for the community. It is part and parcel of the mission of the university, credits or no credits. And in fact, when we come to RCE, one of the dimensions that it was judged upon us, how much impact do we do around the campuses in Gambang, in Gambang, in Kuantan, in Dato? No numbers per se. Yeah? So impact becomes the criteria. And impact means changing life, impact means transformation, impact means making new things and moving forward. Not on old paradigms, doing the old same thing and pretending that as though things are changing when actually it is not. Yeah? So that is the major change. I hope Dr. Zainal will talk this to you when he talks about the RCE. How do you look at impact as a kind of departure point from these numbers or the KPIs? And this is why we are now also changing a little bit of the ideas of what KPI is as compared to the intangibles or the impact as we call it. Okay? Now, Alhamdulillah, we have planned for this and we've got it, but it is something that we didn't plan for. Okay? I told our friends and said, look, why don't we test the water and see where we are? Right? Whether we make the cut or otherwise. I think reluctantly, I later on find out, they reluctantly do this. When the Rector wants us to do this, that's good. Alright? So, we put it up on a kind of a platform called the Green Gown Competition Award. Okay? This organized by 3 very major academic bodies, which includes an International Association of Universities, which is based in Paris, part of UNESCO. They are also supported by the Association of Commonwealth Universities, and also a group of Francophone universities, and then another group called the Higher Education Sustainable Initiative. Among these 4 organizations, I think probably about 2,000 or more universities being members, right? And they're supported by the United Nations Environment sort of organization. Yeah? So it is, to my mind, a very credible way of looking at it. It is not a commercial house, yeah, that drives ranking of things like that. The QS, the Times, I'm not too frightened of that, but I'm not very interested because they work very much commercially. You pay money, you probably get numbers. You don't pay money, you don't get numbers. Yeah? Here, it is quite different. And therefore, we test it out. And Alhamdulillah, when we got the news, we were listed on 2 finalist lists. One is the Sustainable Institution of the Year. The other is what we call Benefiting Society. And that was worked about by a group of CAED students. I didn't know that they participated. Yeah? So, of the so many things, we have got 2, and we are waiting very anxiously. Takkanlah 2, 1 pun tak ada. Okay? So, we talked to Prof Kamal, and Prof Kamal said, don't worry, I will sembahyang hajat. And I think that makes a whole difference. Yeah? I don't know how many else was sembahyang hajat, but Kamal punya sembahyang hajat probably memang works a good. Yeah? So, Alhamdulillah, as we mentioned, on the night of the 8th July, everybody was anxiously waiting. At about maybe 11 o'clock, it was actually announced that IIUM becomes the winner or the champion of the Sustainable Institution of the Year. And because of that, the whole idea of takrim becomes topsy-turvy. Takrim was supposed to be on the 9th of July. It was supposed to be low profile because of the COVID and stuff like that, you know. But when this goes on board, let's say everybody says, well, let's put a little bit more show on this. Okay? So that morning everything changes, and I think, yeah, Alhamdulillah, we deserve to celebrate. But this is the point we are now. I'm not talking about this anymore, but I think it is ingrained in our mind and our heart that we are here to deliver and to show how much that we can actually give the world, that now they will be recognized on this as far as I am concerned. Okay, so there you are. So the stage is created. Yeah, this is a stage. Where is the show? What sort of show are we going to mount on this? Yeah, a comedy, a drama, whatever, a thriller, whatever. Where is the actors? Where is the actresses? Yeah, who is going to be the stage manager? Where is the musician? All these are questions that comes into your head immediately. You've got a stage and you show a third-rate movie, then people say, well, they don't really deserve it. maybe because they're Muslim and Islamic and then they just want to make good for this. All these other stories will come. And I'm not prepared to hear those stories. Right? Because I think we've got talent, we've got capacity, we've got commitment, and we also got what it takes to make it happen. Yeah? So there you are. The first show will be from, you lay the foundation for the show to be on for the years to come. If you fail to do that, then it will be more difficult for us to mount a credible world-class show. That's a burden that we all have got when we talk about the foundation studies. Okay? So I hope there's something that you take very seriously, because you are the seeds that make the tree grow. The seed is strong, then the tree will not grow. Perhaps it will probably not be a good tree after all. Okay? So this is where we are as far as CSS is concerned. If you are not sure of it, let's talk about it and see how best we can deliver. Yeah? All the lights are on you now, all the lights are on us, and we cannot run away anymore because the focus is very much on the university and the related. One of the things that we're going to show that many other universities do not have is this combination of IRK and HS. Yeah? I've been in this world of academia for almost 45 years. I've been in the global part maybe more than 20 years, and I don't see this at all until I step in IIUM. Alright? So this is already a very unique feature. If you want to talk about brand, this is a brand that you've got. And therefore you need now to propagate the brand and tell people what is so different about IRK and HS. Yeah? But from the little that I know, every university will do this, right? Give creativity, give innovation, create the minds how to work on the brain, talk about innovation, talk about KPI, whatever, and get heard of this many times, yeah? But what many universities do not talk about is this dimension where we talk about the heart. Yeah? When you talk about Wahyu, when you talk about Ilham, when you talk about aspiration, I think, if I'm not wrong, it will impinge on the heart more than the brain. Right? In other words, the heart must be ready to receive all this so-called rich knowledge from wherever it comes, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is the point that I think we need to condense down. Is the heart be well content? If people talk about mindfulness, we talk about heartfulness. Is the heart be content? But at the end of the day, the essence of the human being, I think, is the heart, not so much the brain. But more important than that, I think, how do you then merge this together? In other words, when we talk about IRK, HS, how do you merge this together so that at the end of the day, we will arrive at another point where other universities probably do not have. And what is the point? From my point of view, is that we will create another sense of values, another sense of purpose. Although this is not written anywhere, neither is written in our vision statements, I think, but innate in it is basically we want to create that sense of purpose that will bring us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I think that's the difference of this university as compared to many other universities. Other people will talk about, go to school, you get your degree, you get your job, make a good life, and then you die. That's it. Okay? For us, before we die, we want to go to Jannah, and then we die. That is the element that differentiates us from everybody else. I don't know any one of you who doesn't want to go to Jannah. Then you can leave the hall, maybe join another university. Okay. Here, my proposition is everybody wants that day. And it's not easy to get it, provided he has a very clean heart. Yeah? And this is where I think the issue becomes important when you talk about the new Ta'aruf, as it were. Where do you put his heart? So that then we can say, let's try and balance within this group. The whole concept of mizan becomes an important idea of how you balance. So there's no room for extremism. There's no room for anything that is over as far as Islam is concerned, because we are always in a state of balance within these two. And this is what education in IIUM will tell you, inshallah, moving forward. Yeah? So, and on that note, then we talk about leading the way. The song that we've been singing basically talks about this. How do you lead the way, given what IIUM is all about, telling the world that we are different and what the difference are all about, and we pick the four very pristine elements in that song of being a Khalifah, a leader, yeah, that holds to the amanah, very strong commitment to that leadership, based on what? Based on knowledge, iqra, yeah, not just recitation, but reflection and realization at the same time, making the transformation. For whom? For rahmatan lil alamin. Again, you go to any universities around the world, none of them will talk about rahmatan lil alamin humanity per se. Everybody wants to be a world-class university, and that's it. Yeah? World-class for them, not for the world itself, although it is called world-class. So we have got a different way of looking at this. And this, I think, needs to be re-understood again and again as we sing the song. What this tells us, rather than just blabbering away and then forgetting it after singing it. Okay? To me, it's more an anthem rather than a song, because it changes you the moment you sing it. And I think that's the kind of value that we want to tell ourselves. Sing the song because it will change you at the end of the day, not to make you just feel good and then walk away. How do you put the sense of value in terms of living them? And at the end of the day, we want the heart to be an active heart. Yeah? That's a way of putting it, so that it will keep on reminding us of the sense of purpose, the higher purpose, the value that we need to put in, so that we can move up further and further in the context of the Insan Sejahtera that I talked to you about. I want to contrast this from what the university is all about. Yeah? When you were young, I hope I can describe it, the ladies may want to help me. I think the cells that were later on converted into a heart has been there very early. I mean, if you do an ultrasound, at very early stage of pregnancy, you can already detect the pulsation of that. Yeah. Whereas the brain cells probably do not appear many weeks later. All right? But then when you go to university, what we do is basically making the brain bigger all the time. Besar kepala over there. But what it also does in contrast is this. You become a hollow person at the end of the day. You've got this big head with so many ideas, but you've got almost an empty shell, an empty body. Okay? And it is not balanced. When you talk about this balance, this does not balance altogether. I think this is where the crux of the issue is. Instead of moving forward, we are actually moving downwards. Right? Not going back to what the origin of life is all about. And I think this is an issue that I want to bring forward to you. How do you balance, as you develop the brain and the mind, how do you also balance and develop the heart at the same time, so that the balance is maintained as you move into the world and to do whatever you want to do. Yeah, that's simplistically put. But certainly, I think there's enough evidence now to show that the head and the heart works together. All right? And I don't know whether you can see this very clearly from the back. There's another issue to the hand. And this is when the manifestation, the realization comes in. Once this balance comes in, then whatever you do, whatever amal you do, is basically demonstrating that balance. We are not the mischievous kind that the Quran talks about. We are not here to destroy the earth, neither we are here to create, many other evils as far as that. But once the balance is struck. So this is a time then to go back and ask, what is the mission of the university? Alright? All of us, I think, will know what is IIICE, right? But if I ask you again, what is IIICE, I think if I ask 100 people, I probably will get 100 answers. Okay? Nothing wrong with it, but I think it's difficult to keep people together when their ideas are not the same. So we have decided at the end of the day to unpack the IIICE, what is it actually, right? As we go through this, we realize that The triple IC actually refers to what we call the 7 mission of the university that was created in 1995, adopted by the Majlis in 1995, yeah, and now is part and parcel of the university sort of mission statement, right? And if you read the first mission statement, I think it is something to do with at the end of the sentence talk about integrating Islamic real knowledge and human sciences in a positive manner. We have talked about that earlier, right? But there are other things that needs to be fulfilled, which is not quite explicit when we talk about internationalization, integration, and Islamization. I give you an example. If you look at mission number 2. Yeah, I'm sorry, it does not cover the whole thing. But mission number 2, if you look at it, there is this word sustainable development there. Sustainable development in Malaysia and the Muslim world. We need to say that this whole idea of sustainable development or sustainability has been there at least 15 years ago. Okay? But when we look at integration, Islamization, internationalization, the word sustainable development somehow or other does not jump down. Okay? And perhaps that is why it is kept underneath for a long time. Okay? So let me just try and focus on that. Let's forget about all the other missions for a time being, and let's focus on the sustainable development part, because I'm going to connect to where we are now as far as this is concerned. So we see sustainable development as part of the mission of the university. That is mission number 2. No argument about it. Yeah, we talked to Prof about it, and we have agreed that this is one of the things that we need to do, and it was stated in 1995. The good thing is that in 1995, this one must be achieved in the year 2020. Alhamdulillah, we have got there. Right? So in other words, one mission as though has been sort of touched, if not solved, in the way we look at it today. So in last year, Malaysia organized its own sustainable development summit. So if we talk about sustainable development in Malaysia, we have done that, right? Although we are not the only one, there are many others. But we are now settled with whether the Muslim world have got sustainable development as part and parcel of their focus or target as well. And I think this is where we need to work as far as the Muslim world is concerned. I just pick up. I'm sorry, I don't think people at the back can see. But these are the sustainable development goals, the 17 of it, and it is organized in such a way. I've lost it. Where is it? It is organized in such a way that they talk about spirituality, which is goal number 16, and number 17. They talk about ecology, these are the goals, and they talk about people, which is the goals. These are all the 17 goals. And all of this, I think, is contextualized in education. Education will be the route to realize all this sustainable development goal that is incumbent upon us to do in the context of civilization. Right? What does it mean? It means when you talk about education, does it solve any of these problems? Let's take number 1. Number 1 is about poverty. Do education that we give in universities solve the question of poverty? We talk about equitability. Or does it increase poverty? Okay. Education today, enough documentation talks about increases poverty and inequality. Because education now is a business. You get money, you go for good education. You don't have money, you just get whatever you are given. Right? Now that must change. And this is what the RCE is all about. That equation must change. Okay? Second, it talks about poverty, it talks about hunger. Does education eliminate hunger? Or does it increase hunger? Okay? In other words, what are the things that you're going to teach people in economics, for example? What is it that you're going to teach as far as equitable distribution is concerned? Is the growth theory the only theory that you know? Are we talking about a secular theory now as far as economics is concerned? It challenges your mind when you say, look, we want to decrease hunger rather than leave it the way it is or make it worse. Right? We talk about cleanliness. It's where the COVID comes in. This education increases awareness of health and cleanliness. This is a real question in our university. Walk into your toilet and find out whether that toilet is clean enough in the context of Islam. Okay? Somebody just made a comment to me. They said, I cannot go to your toilet and do wudu. I say, why? He says, it's so dirty. If this is the case, then what do we do to our education to make sure that here is where you build the foundation of cleanliness as far as the toilet is concerned? Then when you go to Gambang, you've got another problem. Right? So these are issues that we need to start to grapple with the moment you begin to understand what is the demand. So all things that we do in education must get got a connection. So when we talk about cleanliness, then there is another here. Goal number 6 that talks about sanitation and water. So in other words, you need to attend to this, then you can solve this problem. All of these are interconnected. They are not standalone. And I think that's the reality of today. Everything must be worked with one another and you need to connect. And that's why we say the kuliah must work with one another. The kuliah must work with the mahalah. The mahalah must work with one another. They must work with the community. Everything must be interconnected before we can get a grand solution to a problem that's so severe, electricity. I think that is a challenge ahead of us when we want to talk about this transformation. Right? Now, then it says here also that we must be the agent of transforming the comprehensive and balanced progress. So in other words, whatever transformation we make, it must be balanced, it must be comprehensive. Again, another demand from the mission of number 2 in the context of sustainable development. If you look at goal number 6, it talks about intercultural understanding, foster civilizational dialogue across communities and nations. This is a university that's got, I was told now, 7,000 to 5,000 students from 100 countries. Has they been an intercultural understanding among the students? Particularly in CFS, I think most of us are Malaysian. You're going to go into the world and you will meet all these other cultures. Have you been fostering this understanding of different cultures? Or are we still talking about ethnicity and citizenship rather than a Muslim Ummah, that there's no barriers of that sort? Have we been fostering the civilizational dialogue? Not only within Muslims, but beyond the Muslim world, including the non-Muslims at the same time. That will be the other thing. And I think the Makassar will also talk about this, if you understand this well. And number 7, it talks about a deep understanding, it's not there, a sense of social responsibility among staff and students. Back to the whole question of how do you communicate with the community around us. That's the kind of responsibility that we need to do. So if you go back down to the 7th mission of the university, it is very clear what we need to do and how we need to do this and how we're going to target. If you just talk about the triple ICE, you may miss some of these very finer points that is important for the mission of the university. So our goal for the next 2 years is to make sure all the 7 missions of the university are met. Alright? Perhaps you have done 3 or 4, including the first one. What about the other 3? How are you going to meet them? Which school is going to do this? How do you understand them? And how are you going to propose it to be done? That is the mission of the next 2 years. So that by the end of 2023, when we celebrate our 40th anniversary, hopefully we're still around, at least I'm still around, that we can say, Alhamdulillah, we've completed large part of the 7 missions of the world. No more groping in the dark what this means and what that means. Very clear that our underlying mission is to meet those targets by the 40th anniversary of the university, inshallah. So then we go to the mission of the university, the vision of the university. The vision basically has a number of, we need to still sort it out. Sorry, which is the actual vision of the university. I read a number of things. One, Rector is inspired by the worldview. Inspired by the worldview of Tawhidi and Islamic philosophy of unity, of Tawhid, of knowledge, as well as the concept of holistic education. Make the same thing. Holistic means together, not separated, and not doing piecemeal. Right? It also talks about becoming a leading international center of educational excellence. Right? Which has got three elements in it. One is to revitalize intellectual dynamism of Islam and the Ummah. Dynamism means you need to move and change and reflect what the reality is all about. Yeah? That must happen, and this is where the transformation becomes real as far as I'm concerned. To integrate the revealed knowledge, we talked about that in values in all academic discipline and educational activity. In fact, whatever we do, we want to know whether this hierarchy is there. You may work with the community, you want to do business, but at the end of the day you're going to ask, is HRK and HS in that particular activities that you're undertaking? Because then it will allow you to do this, to restore, I prefer the word enhance, a leading and progressive role of a Muslim Ummah in all branches of knowledge. That is the third one. And then it will culminate into what looks like to me the mission of the university, contributing improvement of upgrading of the qualities of human life and civilization. Back to my first point. Are we equitable? Is there justice? Is there fairness? Is there equality? In a civilizational sense. Not just one community, not just one area, not just one country, but in the ummatic sense, in the rahmatan lil alamin sense, the civilizational sense. And it's a higher goal that we need to think of. How do you then translate this into something that is workable for us? So this looks like the mission of the university. We still need to understand which one is the key point. Yeah? But again, I say this will be the key point, because if you go to any university now, you just Google Harvard and see what the mission statement is all about. There's no human life in this state. There is no civilization in this state. Certainly no universities in this state talk about those things. In other words, if we take this piece as our mission, or vision statement, then we are the only country, or the only university that aspire to have that very lofty sort of mission statement ahead of us. And you can walk tall if you really fulfill this the way someone is to fulfill it. Okay? So I will just skip the rest. I think basically that talks about what I talked to you about. So what do we do next? That is the general picture. Then what do we do next? Now, deriving an aspiration from what the crescent is all about. Islam is all about crescent. Day one crescent. It's a day one crescent that underlines what the moon looks like. So in other words, you build this crescent well, you'll get the full moon. Okay? So we use that aspiration and we say, look, let's talk about our own crescent. It is our strategic mission. And that's the first crescent that we need to build. I think this is where this whole course is all about. Yeah? This is what I think CPD will try and end up. In other words, we must be what I call institutional ready. We want to go into a mission. Are we ready for that mission? Institutionally, is this university ready for that mission? If we are not ready for the mission, how can we be ready for that mission? And this is what today is all about, and tomorrow is all about. Okay? What does it mean? It means that do we understand the mission and the vision of the university, the triple ICE? I've just gone through a great deal that the triple ICE has got the 7 missions and also the vision. Do you understand the 7 missions? Forget about the triple ICE for a moment. Right? What is the 7 missions? How do you then engage it and make it happen? We have illustrated to you that at least 2 out of the 7 missions we already tried to achieve it when we talk about sustainable development. Okay, there is a lot more enhancing needs to be done, but at least we have touched it and we have made some sort of headway as far as the sustainable development, which is the 2nd and the 6th mission as far as IIUM is concerned. Okay? This is generally known as Education 2030, because sustainable development goal from the projection of United Nations must be achieved by the year 2030. In other words, 2030 will be the end point that will tell us whether are we there or not. In other words, IIUM has got 10 years to work. It's almost less than 10 years. It's almost 20, halfway through. By 2030, we should be able to tell, are we there? And that's the kind of trajectory or the journey that we need to undertake. And therefore, our campus must be a sustainable campus. Our campus must be a sustainable campus. I think we've talked about it. No plastic, nothing that destroys the environment. Use of electricity must be economical. Use of water must be economical. Everything else must be within the ambit of saving and preserving and conserving rather than wasting. Again, it is a very Islamic concept. Yeah? You don't waste things for the sake of it. I want to re-emphasize it when I walk to the mahala. Sometimes I walk to the men's mahala. Fortunately or unfortunately, I cannot go to the ladies' mahala. But the men's mahala has certainly much more than you can do. The fans are sometimes turning and nobody there. Right? Many things, and we can talk about it. But these are the changes that we need to do. It's not just about academics, but also the lifestyle exchange. And this is why we're very worried whether the Gambang campus can afford this once a student moves in. The first time they step into this campus, what sort of mindset are you going to tell them? You're going to tell them, switch off your lights the moment you walk out of the door. If you don't tell them on the first day, they might just say, well, never mind, the university is a rich university. After all, they can't pay for it. You are not whether rich or poor, it's about your responsibility. Yeah, ambil air semayang wudu. We go to Makkah now, we can take a wudu, we think in a glass, you put air zam-zam there, I think we can do a wudu in the mosque. Yeah? But why here you need to turn your tap to the maximum and so you want to take a bath? Why this change of behavior suddenly? Where is the training that Islam gives us? These are the things that I think we need to now ingrain into the new students, so that the new habits comes in when we talk about sustainability and sustainable campus. Yeah? We need to understand the maqasid. Where is the maqasid in all this? Yeah? When you talk about sustainable development, to me the maqasid is even far superior than sustainable development. Because the maqasid defines itself. Protection of life, if I'm not mistaken, protection of intellect, protection of the future generation, yeah? Protection of wealth and protection of beliefs. All the 17 goals can be put into all of these 5 slots. We talk about no poverty, for example. What is that? That perhaps is the protection of life. Without having poverty, you protect life. Yeah? Cleanliness, again, maybe protection of life. So all these things I think needs to be articulated so that we see that Maqasid Sharia, as understood by Islam, is far superior than 17 goals. In fact, to a certain extent, we are now creating another goal called goal 80, which is on spirituality. I think that's the kind of argument that I want to hear as we move away from the whole idea of what sustainable development is all about. Now we need to understand also now what is then all this in the relation of the garden of knowledge and virtue. Yeah? How does all these things that you talk about fit into the garden of knowledge and virtue? Is the garden of knowledge and virtue an empty rhetoric? Or is it a living way of life? How do you interpret the garden? What is a garden to you? Yeah? And I'm sure there's another articulation of that. And finally we talk about the leading the way. How do you lead the way? Is there another song to be sang and then forgotten? Or do you want to live by it? These are the new things that we want to bring in. So that at the end of the day, all these are connected. All these are connected into one whole. And these are the crescent that eventually will become the full moon. Yeah? So the next level then, the kuliah needs to work on the processors. Oh my God. The kuliah will do all the processes, and then coming back to this balanced graduate and staff, institutional stability, the harmonious community, and finally we're coming to the humanizing education or holistic education, the way it's put in our mission. Right? And by then, we have got a stage of our own that we can actually dictate and perform the way you want it, because you really understand what education in IIUM is all about in this area. I will skip this. So what is the next thing? The next thing that we are trying to do now is to, first of all, you know this, to break away from the silos. We want people to work together in a team. And this working together is not by invitation. It is by volunteerism. I'm beginning to get, why am I not invited for this? Nobody is going to invite you because you are part of this university. I will invite people from outside the university. But people within the university, we are not going to invite you because you already belong to this group. All you need to do is to volunteer. I'm interested in doing this, I want to volunteer myself, my time, my money, whatever. Yeah? The question of being exclusive, just because you hold a position that I need to invite you together, it is not going to happen. There's too many bureaucracy inviting people and sometimes it's not work. If you think you're sincere enough to help, just walk in and say, I want to be part of the team. There you go. And the more people do this, the easier it is for us. Okay? So no more invitations, whoever you are, you don't wait for invitation, they will probably not come. Okay? Then you begin to exert your own leadership. I've been told, the Prophet said that every one of us is a leader. You are not a leader because you are a rector. Sometimes you are a rector but you don't have leadership. Too bad. Yeah? But you are a leader on your own right because you're a Muslim and you'll be accountable for that leadership. Think about it. Alright? And therefore we need to exert ourselves and be accountable for what we are going to do. We are not talking about how to wish other people. That kind of connectivity. And that's why the university used the word physical distancing, not social distancing. Social distancing means you run away and lock yourself up. Physical distancing means you keep your distance, but you still want to bond each other in terms of social connectivity. Alright? It's the only university that talks about it. The other universities about social distancing. I told my friend, look, you can't even differentiate physical distancing and social distancing. I think we should stop being in the university. Right? You want to put the right value, the right meaning for the thing we do, so that it changes behaviorally each of what we want to do. Yeah? So we talk about this virtual thing. It's a virtual thing that bonds us with one another. Your email or whatever it is, provided it is done in the right way. And we are saying now, you have that responsibility to work wherever you are. So people use WFH, work from home. We have got WSA, work from anywhere. Because we trust you, because we know you have the same commitment, motivation, you all want to go to Jannah together. You can be in a shopping mall, but we know you're working. Until that. Yeah? I don't have to worry, prophesying. For the last 2 years, I've never even talked to spy on him whether he comes to office or something like that. Because I know he's going to work, wherever he is. Alright? So that's a trust that we hold on to you, and that's a trust that you need to pay us back. Don't come and tell me, this fellow is in the shopping mall and he's not enjoying himself. Then he's not working from anywhere. He's not only working from anywhere, anytime. Yeah, sorry. Anytime and anyone. So this whole idea of working 24/7 is us. In the academic world, you work 24/7 because when you sleep, other people are working. And they will email you and say, Zul, can you tell me about this? It's 4 o'clock in the morning. I can say, yes, it is what it's all about. You experience that sometimes from in the same world. Yeah? Because this is where knowledge begins to strike. It doesn't stop. Knowledge doesn't stop at 8 o'clock in the morning because, at 8 o'clock at night because knowledge wants to sleep. Knowledge does not do that. Right? So these are habits that we need to cultivate. But somebody tells me this WFA is even better when we talked about work for Allah. Yeah? I hope you are here for WFA, work for Allah, anywhere, anytime, anywhere. So don't tell the dean is not going to see me today and therefore I can do whatever I want. If work for Allah, somebody is going to see me. And only the heart can tell you that. The mind will forget it. Yeah? Only the heart will remind you that somebody is watching you all the time. making judgment upon truth every minute of the second. That is a level of commitment that I think we should engrave in ourselves. It's difficult, but it is not impossible. We are doing a very ambitious review. Prof. Sati will talk to you about what this review is all about. Yeah. We are opening up more space for you, not just to publish and to research, but we also allow you to be a public intellectual. I'm happy to see a lot more people are writing in newspapers now from IIUM. In fact, the Swiss people say, hey, your guys have been writing to us. You know, and they're beginning to recognize this is a sort of knowledge they can get on. Right? We do it in open access and open resource because it's backed with credibility. You don't have money, but it's open access, it's free of charge. Go ahead and use it. Yeah? There's no copyright per se because it is meant to be shared. Yeah? We are talking about how do we now revise this whole area of Ta'adub. Prof. Faris is doing this, and this is where part and parcel of trying to revise it. Yeah? And CPD is trying to put in different programs so that we understand this from different contexts. Right? We cannot re-emphasize the community is important. At the end of the day, the beneficiary of knowledge belongs to the community. We are part of the community. We are not a standalone. And neither are we an ivory tower, right? And this is where we encourage people to do flagships, because the flagships will be a link between you and the community. You may start small, but later on it grows big. Yeah? One is the mental health thing. You start very small. Now the mental health thing is now going quite a distance. Yeah? OIC is interested. A new commission on mental health has just approached it. Want to be part of the community. I'm told that Majlis Keselamatan Negara has also contacted the Kuliah and see how they can advise the Majlis Keselamatan. So start something small, never mind. By the end of the day, it will grow big as a link between you and the community. Right? So mental health, I talked about it. Right? How do you do this? And finally, we talk about what education 2030 is all about. At the end point of 2030, where are we? How will we arrive at it? What sort of education are we going to put forward? And how we're going to make it work for Rahmatan Lil Alamin. And just a short way of looking at it is just very tentatively to use the word COVID as an understanding. What is CC is for collaboration. We want to collaborate. We don't want this to compete blindly and deprive each other. We want to collaborate, we want to cooperate, we want to work together. This mashwara, this shura, whatever we talked about, it needs to be implemented in a knowledge sense. Right? It has to be open. In other words, sharing. There's no kind of a hogging of knowledge because knowledge belongs to everybody, particularly when you talk about the Tawhid knowledge and such. You want to talk we as values. What is the value in the knowledge that you're going to propose? Or is this just knowledge for the sake of knowledge? What does it change? How does it make a better person? Yeah? You want to talk about being inclusive, it's the common that we have been using all the time. And you want to talk about D, in other words, the diversity of knowledge from different parts of the world, different cultures, the diagonal. Remember the diagonal that I talked to you about in RCE? How does the diagonal takes you across nations, across continents, and across civilization, and that would be it. There's a general thinking, but we need to rework on that a little bit more. I want to just end up with probably understanding what is KPI. I've been talking about KIP, but I think that's not the whole solution. How do you balance the KIP with a KPI with a KIP? Right? Now, my understanding of KIP is basically about you having an interest of your own. The word goes back to the word scholarly understanding of what your interest is. It is about the freedom of intellectual pursuit of higher things. Remember, we talked about higher purpose, right? When you have this KIP, it's about you trying to manifest that interest of yours in a very intellectual way, so that you move from one level of being to another level of being. Okay? And that will then, at the end of the day, give you this. You begin to understand and be thankful of what you're given. Where should go? Yeah? Question of gratitude. I've written an essay about sustainable development in Asia Pacific sense. The big word as far as Asia Pacific is about gratitude, giving back. The Japanese, for example, yeah? When they do an experiment in a lab. All the carcasses, all the bodies that have been wasted is collected in a place, and every once in a month they will bury those bodies. You eat a rat, you eat a rabbit, you eat whatever, because they say this is a way of giving back to us. Unlike some of us, we just throw in the garbage. That's the value that the Japanese hold. I don't know what the value that the Muslim hold in this particular one. Some of them go even to the extent that if they have a comb that is made of bone, for example, and when the comb is broken, they will keep it and they will bury it the next day, because that belongs to the earth. So this is the kind of value that I think we need to express when we talk about being gratitude, being grateful. How do we then return things to its original position or its original place if it needs to be there? That's a level of thinking that we want to do. So in the case of here, how we can pay back to the community that has given us so much? How do you pay back to our parents? How do you pay back to our teachers? Of course, how do you pay back to Allah SWT? We are not going to ask all the time. It's a time to give back. And that comes only when you have this earning or yearning for moving to a higher level. How to do that. And finally, we will root it into this Insan Sejahtera. We will talk a little bit about what it is all about. And we have talked about Surah Ibrahim 2024. The surah, if I remember correctly, talks about a good tree. A good tree is a tree that is well anchored in the ground. Okay? If the tree is not well anchored on the ground, then the tree will fall anytime. What is that? To me, these are the virtues that we talk about. The values that holds us onto the ground, our own principle. Come what may, we are not wayward. Come what may, we will not fall, because we are well anchored on our values. It doesn't matter where we are and who we are. And that's the kind of perseverance that I hope will create out of this university, so that we can have this routine. At the end of the day, then we create the purpose based on principle that leads us to a value, code of values and a code of conduct. Our behavior will then tell people who we are from as though when we go out, there's a label IIUM on our pocket. Why? Because they behave differently. They speak differently. And that's the kind of, quote unquote, person that we want to be. But we don't want to go into this, that you lose your sense of purpose, right? And I've got a small illustration to show you, as though this is on the way to my house. Yeah? This happens on May 20th this year, and it's a big tree, but look at the roots. These are foundation studies. Yeah. If the foundation studies is like this, then it will fall anytime. I want to just keep this illustration so that it sticks in our mind. Okay? If you don't have a good foundation, doesn't matter how good your tree is, it will fall. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of time. Particularly in this world now, there are so many challenges, beginning from the technology right down to the virus. Look at this. And 20th of May, if you remember, this is the anniversary of the university. It's 27th anniversary of the university. I don't know why the tree fall at that particular time as I come out of my house. Maybe it's a warning to the rector, be careful. Yeah? If we don't get this right, you will fall after this. It's almost like an omen. Okay? So I want to share this with you, so that you also stick in your mind. And this is now a kind of a reminder for me. I pray this in my office, and I will look at it every day. Right? So it tells a story. Yeah? You don't have the roots, it doesn't matter how big you are, you will fall. Right? I think the roots is the one that we are trying to work on as far as this is concerned. So what is Insan Sejahtera? It's my own accounting of Insan Sejahtera. Yeah? I think we need to go back to the fitrah of who we are, and it's just an example of what the fitrah is. It's really new. Yeah? It's a kind of a balancing thing. There's so many things happen. How do you keep that fitra? How do you keep that tree anchored within it? Right? Now, all of us have got these challenges. Moving from the very carnal sort of person, and this is the evolution that we need to rescue at that level. Or that's me at that level. So. And we need to move spirally from that situation right to that spiritual being that we are. That's the journey that we need to undertake, whether you like it or not. Right? Some of us will stop at this. We've got a PhD, we've got a professor, we've got Emeritus professor, we've got a Tansi, enough. I've got enough. Right? And you don't want to take the other journey. This is the Jannah that we talk about. Okay? In many universities, they just stop there. But we want to move another level up. Right? But all of us has got this issue also. The first thing that we have to contend with is our ego. University is a place where it's very egocentric. Yeah? You need to address somebody by his doctor, Professor Emeritus, or tak pakai malah dia. Yeah? So sometimes I call his study, because he's my brother. But his study will call me Tansi, he doesn't want to call me Zul for somehow. Sometimes we are taken away by all this abstraction is slapping in front of our name. That's why if you see I put my name first and my typing behind. I don't want to be touched by those things. Be conscious about it. And then it shrinks your ego to a level that you now can participate in many other places because you are not hyped up in a place that became is all of your own. Okay? And that's where I think what we call, I'm not good in Arabic, but I read the English one, is called the inciting ego. This person there is inciting ego. He wants to create all sorts of wishes just to show that he's better than somebody else. You lose the sense of humility. You become very arrogant just because you think you are better than somebody else. I think that kills everything. That kills even the university. How to get back to that sense of humility so that you can be part and parcel of everybody around. It doesn't matter who they are, but we are at the same level of you as a human. Okay? In my career, I've learned from people who sweep the streets. Yeah? In my old university in USM, when I give a small story, when I was the vice chancellor, and somebody knocked on my door and said, Tansi, I've been working here for 30 years, I can't even see the vice chancellor, please come. And we will talk to him, and so he's another guest of mine. Yeah? Entertaining with tea and stuff like that, like somebody else. And I say, and he suddenly said to me, Tansi, I've got a problem. I said, what's your problem? He said, I sweep this street of the university for the last 30 years, but I've got this penyapu lidi. I don't know what it is, made from coconut palms. Yeah. The best way to sweep the street, we need penyapu bulu. I say, why don't you ask for penyapu bulu? I say, people in the development office don't want to give me penyapu bulu. So I called the development office. I said, here is Pak Samad, he wants a penyapu bulu or penyapu lidi. Why don't you give him? The answer is from the other side. The typical answer, ini SOP kami kan. The word SOP has been there a long time. It's our SOP kan. For sweeping the street, you need penyapu lidi, not penyapu bulu. My question to them, who write this SOP? Kita lah, we all write the SOP. How many of you have swept the street before? Tak ada. Then who gives you the right to decide that penyapu lidi is better than penyapu bulu? As far as sweeping the street is concerned, Pak Samad is your consultant. He has been doing this for the last 30 years. You work on the corporate sector, you need to pay for his ideas of what is good, because he's a consultant. But people don't care because Pak Samad is just a soul sweeper. But his knowledge has contributed. So I told them, look, you listen to him and you give him a penyapu bulu reward. And Pak Samad got his penyapu bulu. I mean, that's the level of humility that we need to have. We need to learn from everybody around us. It doesn't matter you've got a PhD or not. Because his knowledge is better than yours, and therefore you need to learn. And are we doing that? Are we doing that? I don't think most of us will do that, because we are still stuck with our ego. So how do you kill this ego? Then you kill this ego by moving its real jihad of self-struggle. It has to be self, could be soul, could be spirit, depending on what it is. But that is a jihad that's happening all the time in us, whether we realize so. Yeah? If you don't realize it, then this guy will get a upper hand. He will tell you what to do. And hence you got all this corruption and unethical behavior, doing this and that and this and that. Because this guy is controlling your life. You are not controlling your life. As much as you want to, but when it comes to egocentric, you become not the boss anymore, somebody else is bossing you around, whether you realize it. This is where then we begin to accept the two things, the heart and the brain. How do we make this thing work so that we then can do the jihad in a proper way to control this particular person within? This particular person does not sleep. When you're asleep, he's still awake. When you're awake, he's still awake. Yeah. So he's there all the time. And you need to be, that's why I say WFA. Okay? If you don't have the WFA, this guy has a better. So you have that now. From that, then you move into a level of, you begin to realize there's something wrong with you and begin to accuse yourself. And that's where you want to find the solution out. And alhamdulillah, you do well on that merit, and you get into selfishness and peace. And this is where you find the fitrah, the build back based on truth. Alright? And you become hopefully a better human being from the Islamic point of view, where your heart actually beats at the rhythm of what Islam wants you. And then you will then bring back education. Not for education's sake, it makes you a wiser person. That wise person will bring justice to the whole world. And that's where your rahmatan lil alamin. Right? Finally, you will then create this balance between the mind and the heart, where we started off from IRK and efficiency. So IRK and efficiency is not a fully authentic thing. Or anybody kuliah IRK, HS, okay lah, I'm not. The IRK-HS is a way of life for everybody in this university to strike out that. Yeah? And I think it is a process that the university will need to go through as we go through this journey, and I hope CPD will be one of the key players in making this Insan Sejahtera a reality in this university. And alhamdulillah, that happens. That we don't need any more awards. Yeah? We don't need any more rewards. The rewards will come from Allah SWT and the barakah that we will get, inshallah, over a period. I think I will stop there. Somebody will ask me, what is this has to do with Islam? Where is the Prophet said? Yeah? I just want to show you. At the end of the day, this will be our benchmark. Right? If I arrive at that stage, you live modestly, you talk softly, you walk humbly, you dress simply, you speak honestly, you live justly, you practice faithfully, you think truthfully, you learn obediently. More. You teach patiently, you advise wisely, you work diligently, you treat ethically, you plan systematically, you behave respectfully, you act moderately, you interact politely, but you fight courageously. The last part is the one that I find a lot more wonderful. Yeah? When it comes to fighting, we always be very clear. In the board, sometimes it will happen. MC, UMC happens. When it comes to fighting, you need to fight courageously, because that's where the principle becomes important to us. That's where Islam becomes important to us. We cannot just compromise this because we don't have the courage to do so. Right? That would be the end point as far as that is concerned. Beyond Islam, we talk about Aristotle, educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. If it is true, we have not been educating ourselves for ages. How do you bring in the heart as part of it? From a technology point of view, maybe he's not a Muslim, but he is what he said. Do not let the noise of other opinions drown out your own inner voice. And the most important, have the courage again to follow the heart and the intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. He is Dato, pretty technologist, but still have the same inclination because he's a human being again. When he go and introspect himself, he writes this book on his Suez in his memoir. And finally, I want to end with this, because this is already accepted by UNESCO in 2014, right? In a conference, I think in Korea. He said the concept of education has been doing the rounds for the last century has to change radically. I hope he is what we are here for. Dia kata apa? Education has to move away from being an exercise with an end goal of merely transferring skill to a social, emotional praxis. So that is the education of the heart. Alright? So UNESCO is beginning to understand this, but there's not much work to be done. And this is where I think the stage is set for IIUM with the IRPHS as the main task moving forward. If you can do that, I think the world is at palm of your hand. Inshallah, we will move on. So I'll stop there. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Translation will be with us until 11 o'clock. So any questions that's burning in your heart that you'd like to ask? Translation. Okay. Anyone would like to ask? Peluang ni susah nak dapat. Yes, please.
Jauh. Oi, jauh. Okay, Prof.
How are you?
Thanks, Alhamdulillah.
Jauh ni. No, stay over there. Go far away. Okay, Assalamualaikum, Prof. Thanks a lot for your enlightening lecture. I think that, Alhamdulillah, I think Tan Sri is the first IIUM Rector to focus on internationalization. I think that is very powerful, I think. All this while we have been focusing only on Islamization. And therefore we always, we talk about Sejahtera ideas, we talk about Ismail Farooqi ideas, and Prof start like, come on, let's focus on internationalization. But Prof, we have a problem. The question is how to reconcile between Islamization and internationalization in view of the fact that we Muslim Ummah, and not only the university, we Muslim Ummah has spent billions on Islamization or Islamicization of knowledge, and yet the excitement for Islamization of knowledge is somehow less or least intense. This is the problem now. We are struggling with Islamization of knowledge, and somehow now we are bombarded with sustainability. Instead, I'm afraid that some of us, or rather most of us, will get confused because macam tak settle lagi dah Islamization of knowledge. So we are doing things like melepaskan patut di tangga. How do we settle this problem, Prof?
I probably will not be the best person to answer this because I've not been with you for a long time. But my answer is basically, can we hold back this word Islamization, internationalization, integration? Because the understanding is not that. That's why I want to bring you back to the 7 mission. The 7 mission crystallizes exactly what we need to do. Because when we talk about these 3 I's, I think we still are subjective to interpretation, and the question is whose interpretation? Yeah? So kalau kita kata, let's hold this back. I mean, not that it's not important, but let's hold this back. We've been with it for the last 35 years. Where has it taken us? Maybe to a certain extent. But let's focus on the real gist of it. What is the real gist of it? Is 7 mission. I think once you get the clarity, I think you can move on perhaps in a better, in a better way of doing. And these were the challenges at the moment in time. Are we prepared to move away from the triple ICE and then go into the 7 nations and get our mandate from there, where IIUM wants to be in the next 2 years, or perhaps more than that. Okay? That's a decision that you need to make. I'm not going to make a judgment whether Islamization works after Potida, because it's not my place. I've been here for 2 years. People like Faris, people like Isani may be able to do that, but I don't think I can do that. But I want to focus on the 7 missions. 7 missions to become very clear of what it's all about as far as IIUM is concerned. Sorry, I'm not answering your question, but I think that there is more to be discussed about this as we move forward. Okay? Any other issue? But these are I think when the lectures comes in, you need to interact with them quite directly.
So thank you very much, Chancellor, for this inspiring talk. I believe that the talk is give us 2 points, including the inspiring and also how we apply UIA goals transferring to this. My request is about a bit more about the education. This is the question. We have a program which they call as Diploma in Islamic Studies. Diploma Islamic Studies in quarter here. Here is a course we call it Education, Knowledge and Islamization. And this course is we depend on the book being produced by you and also Prof. Kosnani about the education in the subject. So this book is very inspiring, and most of ideas of education is there. A book is produced originally in Bahasa Melayu, but we need the possibility of translating into to other languages, especially English and also possible in Arabic. So you are one of the authors. So this is a matter of requesting, if possible, because that book, the summary of the education philosophy is there.
Yeah, I think my point is basically we need to understand what education is all about. Tomorrow I'm going to have a webinar called Decolonizing the Muslim Minds. And I'm talking about how this university originates. It originates in the 11th century. The whole concept of university, based on a Latin word called universitas, defined by them as the European trustee of the European human institution. That is a university in the 11th century defined by a group of Eurocentric. And therefore, when you take this idea of a university and craft it into education, what are we doing? Everything else is Eurocentric. Look at the university. Yeah. And where there is a university before that, 859. University of Karajan in Fes. And that's the first university in the world as far as the UNESCO is concerned. Built by a lady, Fatima al-Fikr. Where is this model? Where is this model? Why is this model not substantial to us? We are an Islamic university. Why are we still holding into another colonial idea of what university is all about? I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. Decolonial, because we need to understand the history of this. We are not doing this because we are Muslim and we think we are better than the rest. There is a historical perspective to this that we need to read it and understand. And if you think it's worthwhile taking it, take it on. Okay? And leave whatever is. Plus, this modern university is collapsing anyway. There's another video that you need to see called Ivory Tower, made by CSN and Columbia University. And they tell you where the university is going to collapse. Very simple. One statistic they show from the year 1970 to the year 2010, the rate of inflation of university in the United States of America is 1,100%. How can you get equitable knowledge, equitable education if the inflation rate is 1,100% over 30 years? The model is something wrong. And we are using that model, and that's why our university is also very collapsing. Yeah? Board semalam duit tak ada, nak bawa international student, want to do this, want to do that. It does not work. British Empire is still functioning after 1,200 years because they were wiped out. Where have we missed? So these are issues I think which is larger than the question that was forwarded. We need to retrospect where are we failing, where are we failing, what model are we using, and why are we doing so? Right? So that will be another issue to discuss. Okay, one last question. I need to go to Kuantan over here also, especially if there's any one last question. Okay, kalau tak ada, I would want to wish you well. I don't know whether the introduction I gave you is too much or too overwhelming, but there is a whole perspective that I think we need to look at. After 35 years, before we go to the 40 years, we need to put the compass back and say where are we heading. And these are the new ideas or new facts or new ideas may not be assumed, but these are the constitutions that we need to discuss. Okay? And if we want to decide on that, then collectively from 2021 to 2020 moving forward, we will need to come another roadmap, hopefully insyaAllah. So I bid you farewell. Terima kasih banyak. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.